Study Session 12, Human Motivation. Introduction. Although there are times when organisms are in a state of hibernation, for example when asleep, it is generally characteristic of them to be active. In order to understand why an active organism does what it does, we would need to understand the motives behind their actions. Motives incite a living organism to put up an action or behavior. It also gives direction to behavior once it has commenced. Learning outcomes. When you have studied this session, you should be able to 1. Highlight the difference between motivation and emotion. 2. Identify at least 5 sources of motivation. 3. Discuss at least 4 theories of motivation. Motivational disposition and emotion. Motivation is an internal state or condition, in brackets, sometimes described as a need, desire, or want, that serves to activate or energize behavior and give its direction. It could also be defined as a driving force or forces responsible for initiation, persistence, direction, and vigor of goal-directed behavior. It includes the biological drive, such as hunger, thirst, sex, and sex preservation, and also social forms of motivation, such as need for achievement and need for affiliation. Klein-Gina and Klein-Gina, 1981. Succinctly, motivation involves the internal state or condition that activates behavior and gives its direction, desire, or want that energizes and directs goal-oriented behavior, influence of needs and desires on the intensity and direction of behavior. Most motivation theorists assume that motivation is involved in the performance of all learned responses. That is, a learned behavior will not occur unless it is energized. That is, a learned behavior will not occur unless it is energized. The major question among psychologists in general is whether motivation is a primary or secondary influence on behavior. That is, are changes in behavior better explained by principles of environmental or ecological influences, perception, memory, cognitive development, emotion, explanatory style, or personality, or are concepts unique to motivation more pertinent? Not all motives which can incite an organism to action are likely to be operative at the same time. An individual may be determined to make good grades in an oncoming examination, thereby studying so hard during the week. The same person may be engrossed with religious roles on Sunday, leaving out the serious attention to reading in the process. The tendency to have a variety of motives at a time without expressing all of them at the same time is called motivational disposition. Motivational dispositions reflect the organism's past, arouse motives, are consequences of present interaction among internal and external circumstances. Individuals differ in their motivational dispositions because of their developmental and acquired characteristics. Emotion, in brackets, an indefinite subjective sensation experienced as a state of arousal, is different from motivation in that there is not necessarily a goal orientation affiliated with it. Emotions occur as a result of an interaction between perception of environmental stimuli, neural or hormonal responses to these perceptions, in bracket, often labeled feelings, and subjective cognitive labeling of these feelings. Klein-Giner and Klein-Giner, 1981. Evidence suggests there is a small core of core emotions, perhaps 6 or 8, that are uniquely associated with a specific facial expression. Izard, 1990. This implies that there are a small number of unique biological responses that are genetically hardwired to specific facial expressions. A further implication is that the process works in reverse. If you want to change your feelings, that is, your physiological functioning, you can do so by changing your facial expression. That is, if you are motivated to change how you feel, and your feeling is associated with a specific facial expression, you can change that feeling by purposely changing your facial expression. Since most of us would rather feel happy than otherwise, the most appropriate facial expression would be a smile. Classification of motives. Both human and animal motives may be based on the need for satisfying thirst, hunger, sex, and pain. Other classifications consider motivational dispositions. Maslow, 1954, related motivational dispositions to 5 basic needs, which he identified as physiological needs, safety needs, love, and belongingness needs, needs for self-esteem, and need for self-actualization. Sources of motivation. In general, explanations regarding the sources of motivation can be categorized as either extrinsic in bracket outside the person or intrinsic in bracket internal to the person. Intrinsic sources and corresponding theories can be further subcategorized as either body or physical, mind or mental in bracket cognitive, affective, and conative, or transpersonal or spiritual. This could be broken down as shown in figure 12.1. Theories of motivation. Theories of motivation could be broadly classified as behavioral, cognitive, psychoanalytic theory, humanistic or Maslowian theory, and social learning and social cognition. Behavioral theories. These include classical conditioning and operant conditioning. Classical conditioning states that biological responses to associated stimuli energize and direct behavior. Operant learning states that the primary factor is consequences. Consequences in this context means that the application of reinforcers provides incentives to increase behavior. The application of punishers provides disincentives that result in decrease of behavior. Cognitive theories. There are several motivational theories that trace their roots to the information processing approach to learning. These approaches focus on the categories and labels people use to help identify thoughts, emotions, dispositions, and behaviors. These theories include the cognitive dissonance theory, attribution theory, expectancy theory. Cognitive dissonance. This is a cognitive theory developed by Leon Festinger, 1957, and it states that when there is a discrepancy between two beliefs, two actions, or between a belief and an action, we will act to resolve conflicts and discrepancies. The implication is that if we can create the appropriate amount of disequilibrium, this will in turn lead to the individual changing his or her behavior, which in turn will lead to a change in thought patterns which in turn leads to more change in behavior. Attribution theory. This is a cognitive theory developed by Haider 1958 and Weiner 1974. This theory proposes that every individual tries to explain sources of failure of self and others by offering certain attributions. These attributions are either internal or external and are either under control or not under control. Expectancy theory. This theory was propounded by Vroom 1964. It states that three factors of expectancy, instrumentality, and balance of value are to be multiplied by each other and must be present for an individual's motivation to engage in a behavior. A low value in one will result in a low value of motivation. If one does not believe he or she can be successful at a task, or the individual does not see a connection between his or her activity and success, or the individual does not value the results of success, then the probability is lowered that the individual will engage in the required learning activity. Psychoanalytic theory. According to Freud 1990, all actions or behavior is a result of internal biological instincts that are classified into two categories: life in brackets sexual and death in brackets aggression. Many of Freud's students broke with him over this concept. For example, Erikson 1993 and Sullivan 1968 proposed that interpersonal and social relationships are fundamental. Adler 1989 proposed power, while Jung 1953 and 1997 proposed temperament and search for soul or personal meaningfulness. Social learning observational theory. This suggests that modeling, imitating others, and vicarious learning in bracket watching others have consequences applied to their behavior are important motivators of behavior. The social cognition theory. This theory explains that the environment, an individual's behavior, and the individual's characteristics in brackets, e.g., knowledge, emotions, cognitive development, both influence and are influenced by each other components. Bandura 1986 and 1997 highlight self-efficacy in brackets the belief that a particular action is possible and that the individual can accomplish it, and self-regulation in brackets the establishment of goals, the development of a plan to attain these goals, the commitment to implement that plan, the actual implementation of the plan, and subsequent actions of reflection and modification or redirection. Two other sub-themes of the social cognition theory exist. First, the spiritual or transpersonal theory, which deals with the meaningfulness of our lives or ultimate meanings. Secondly, the achievement motivation theory, which states that individuals are motivated to either avoid failure, in brackets, more often associated with performance goals, or achieve success, in brackets, more often associated with mastery goals. Study session summary. This study session took you through motivation, which is a driving force that is responsible for initiation, persistence, direction, and vigor of goals-directed behavior. It includes the biological drives such as hunger, thirst, sex, and sex preservation. It also includes social forms of motivation, such as need for achievement and need for affiliation. Yet, not all motives which can incite an organism to action are likely to be operative at the same time. Motivation can be categorized as either extrinsic in bracket outside the person or intrinsic in bracket internal to the person. Intrinsic sources and corresponding theories can be further subcategorized as either body physical or mind or mental in bracket, that is cognitive, affective or cognitive, or transpersonal or spiritual. Lastly, we highlighted various theories of motivation such as behavioral, cognitive, psychoanalytics, social learning, and social cognition theories. End of Psych 101. Thank you for listening.